Welcome, everyone. This is our second uh, um, webinar today focused on the remote instruction plans. Today we have myself with you, Sneha. I know many of you here. We have almost 300 folks here and lots of familiar names. So thank you so much. We also have Vanessa Wren here with you today as well, the Director of Digital Teaching and Learning, and she and I are kind of heading up this portion of our work group for instructional planning and scheduling. So we are so grateful that you are here. This is a relatively new platform for the department. We're moving away from GoTo to WebEx in this next month. So thank you for being patient with us. Vanessa, would you like to add a welcome?
I would say hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. As Sneha said, this is a large group, and we look forward to going over the remote instruction plan with you today. Our purpose is that you will come away today with a better understanding of how to complete your plan and what the plan requires.
Before we get started, we first just want to say thank you. You all are our frontline workers for education, along with all of your staff in our school districts. And we cannot express just how grateful and how just impressed we are with the incredible innovation and just sheer hard work. The sheer hard work that all of you all are putting in have put in during this emergency time at home because of COVID, as well as all the thinking that's going forward and looking at where we'll be for the next school year. And that is what we are here today to do, is to support you with the reopening of schools through this remote instruction plan. Please also know that we have many work groups working together for DPI's guidance for you around reopening. We're working hand in hand with DHHS. And so in the next week or two, you will be having a complete guide to help you continue thinking about reopening come August 17th. We will just go ahead and get started now around our remote instruction plans. So first of all, these remote instruction plans are intended for all public school units. That includes all of you here from our traditional LEAs, but also our charter schools, lab schools, and our regional schools. So all public school units will be writing a remote instruction plan that will have 15 required components. 13 that were from the original legislation, and then hearing out some other needs from the field, two other additional requirements, including one having to deal with you all sharing your limitations, which was very important that we heard. That way, it is very clear what remaining challenges you have to provide quality remote instruction. These plans are due to the department by July 20th. We do have an entire system for submission that you will receive very clear directions for on Friday, but there will be a clear submission process so that we are able to turn that around and submit your plans to the General Assembly in September. So why are we doing this? Well, we are doing this to ensure that we have a better, more intentional plan for a framework for developing quality remote learning for potential future disruptions due to COVID-19. This is based on both Session Law 2023, which came out of Senate Bill 704, and also is now codified in State Board Policy SPLN 006. Before I move on, I see that we have a couple people who've lost audio. I believe I am still able to be heard by most. Vanessa, can you still hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. Jessica, we hope you'll be back on with us soon. Okay, I think we're ready to go on to the next slide. Thank you so much. Vanessa is now going to be sharing with you each of the components, and then we will come back and discuss the template and the submission process. Vanessa.
Thank you, Sneha. So as Sneha said, the whole purpose of these 15 components is to guide you in the development of a quality remote instruction learning framework. And we are going to go through all of these today, the 13 that are required by Senate Bill 704, and then the additional 2 that the State Board of Education has added to those. But before I get started, I do want to add that as we develop the template for you to turn these in, we met with our advisory boards of superintendents, chief academic officers, charter school leaders, and chief technology officers. And we heard you. Overwhelmingly, you said keep this mirroring the required components. Let's not add a lot to that. We would like it to be open-ended for flexibility and developed in a way that allows us to collaborate with our teams. So we will talk about that later on in this webinar today and show you what that looks like. But I did want you to know that we also sent out to superintendents on Friday a form where each superintendent would input their designee for who will be the point of contact for each LEA. Superintendents could appoint up to 2 persons to be that designee. And as you know, in case we have any charter or lab schools or regional schools on this call as well, if each charter school will go to their principal, lab schools that will go to their principal, as well as regional schools. But for LEAs, because there's a multitude of structures for how you are collecting this data and who you will put in charge, each superintendent has designated someone or someone's up to 2 people to be that person. So all of our communications will go to that point of contact. And as we talk about further guidance documents that will come out on Friday, those will also be sent to that contact. So without further ado, let's go through and start looking at each one of these 15 items that is in the remote instruction plan. The first one is your team. It says consulting with your teachers, administrators, and instructional support staff, including parents, students, community partners, and other stakeholders in developing your plan and in also how that plan will be communicated. So we want to make sure we can capture your whole team, and there will be a place on your template where you can input your entire team members. But the main takeaway here is collaboration to make sure that the development of your plan meets your specific community's needs. And that is item 1. Item 2 of the remote instruction plan is about training for your teachers and staff on the effective use of remote instruction resources that your PSU will use and the process for student submission of completed work. You also need to, at this component, identify any learning management systems, online instructional resources, offline instructional resources that will be made available to all students in a grade level across the PSU. So think about all the things that you may have, LMSs, video conferencing resources, and what clear processes you will have for each resource. You also need to include here how you will communicate for each student to submit their work. And one of the things that we've included in the template is a spreadsheet that is pre-populated with commonly used online and offline resources. So you can use that to report which ones you are using. So that will be inside of the template as you get there. And we will talk a little more about that before we close out today's webinar. This is what the item 2 spreadsheet looks like. And again, it is submitted, embedded in there. And when you click on it, you will be forced to make a copy. So you don't have to come up with your own list of online and offline resources, but you also will have the flexibility to add specific resources that may not be pre-populated here. And item 3 of the remote instruction plan is clearly defining and communicating your staff roles and expectations for remote instruction days. This also includes what that would look like if remote instruction is on a teacher workday, addressing teacher accessibility and non-certified staff workdays responsibilities. The plan can also include your variances for staff expectations when remote instruction days are also on a teacher workday. But we will be giving you guidance by Friday that will help you in clearly identifying what the time expectations are for your staff, how you might want to change roles for support staff to support remote instruction, and any required check-ins that you might have for teachers to perform with students on a remote instruction day. You are encouraged to consider your certified and your classified staff and how their roles and responsibilities will support students' educational and emotional health and safety needs. Item 4 of the remote instruction plan is ask to survey our students and our teachers about their home connectivity and provide for remote instruction that is appropriate for teachers and students with limited connectivity capability. This will include opportunities for students to download remote learning materials in advance when that is appropriate. So there will be many things that you'll need to include, how you have surveyed your students, when did you connect with them. One of the things you need to think about is often students' access to reliable connectivity will change throughout a school year. They might be living with one parent and then go to another parent's house or grandparents' house where they might not have the same access. So think about how you might routinely collect checkpoints to make sure your students have access to connectivity. Item 5 is engaging with your community partners on services that parents and students can utilize on remote instruction days. This will include community partners willing to provide free broadband access or connectivity, and also community partners who can provide childcare options. And part 2 of this is communicating those schedules of remote instruction and those options with your partners. So think about how each school district has uniqueness in the resources that are available to them in their community. This can include your faith-based organizations, your civic organizations such as the Rotary Clubs, the YMCAs, and some of the things that can be used for parents to access connectivity and childcare on those remote instruction days. Item 6 of the remote instruction plan is all about the effective design and delivery of the instructional lessons. And as I've said before, you will be receiving more guidance on by Friday on what effective instructional design for remote learning looks like. The intent is to make sure that you are able to stay connected with your students on remote instruction days. And we are going to provide you with seven components of effective remote instruction. And those components include instruction time, connection to families and students, student engagement with aligned standards, equity, choice, and flexibility, teacher provided feedback on student work, and collaboration among students. And all of this is still through the lens of making sure students are socially and emotionally healthy. Component 7 of the remote instruction plan is teaching and practicing opportunities for students on assessing and using remote instruction platforms and methods. This includes how to locate, complete, and submit assignments, including regular opportunities for students to practice on those same platforms while they are in face-to-face environments. So you need to think about how you will make sure that any student throughout all grade levels and subject areas are getting practice on the platforms that they will be using on remote instruction days. And then making sure that they understand clearly how they will submit work and get that work available for a teacher to provide feedback during remote instruction. And again, further guidance on each one of these with some examples will be available to you. Item 8 is communicating the specific learning targets to students on each remote instruction day and ensuring that lesson design provides instructional time, practice, and application components to demonstrate learning. This includes a process for monitoring the quality of the remote instruction materials. And we want to make sure that students have the opportunity to access, but then also that what they are accessing is a quality instructional material on those days. Item 9 is ensuring that remote instructional time, practice, and application components support learning growth that continues towards mastery of the standard course of study. This will include measurements that are appropriate to each grade level, including clearly communicated deadlines for submission of assignments and methods to access the grade level learning during remote instruction. And I will remind you that includes both online and offline versions. Item number 10 is ensuring that students with disabilities have equal access to remote instruction. And that includes students with an IEP or a 504 plan. The remote learning day supports have to be considered and put inside of the IEP upon initial review or any subsequent reviews that may happen. Item number 11 is tracking and reporting attendance on remote instruction days. This includes protocols for how you will determine what will be attendance for a student on a remote instruction day and the reporting system that will be used and how attendance procedures will be communicated to parents. Clear guidance will come to you about what will equate to student attendance on remote instruction. And we've also modified the student information system, PowerSchool, that now will have a remote instruction day calendar type. There'll actually be 3 calendar types around remote instruction day, but clear and specific reference guides will be made available to you, and your data managers will also receive that guidance as well. Item number 12 of the remote instruction plan states that we must provide online and offline contact options for students to communicate with teachers or staff on remote instruction days. The goal here is to ensure students have optimal access to a teacher just as they would if they were sitting in a classroom and would raise their hand or pose a question, a reliable communication tool where they can access instructional support on a remote instructional day. Examples could include live online office hours, designated chat room times, synchronous video conferencing times to make sure each student has access to instructional supports and helps. And then closely aligned to that is item number 13, except it is about the technology support. Item 13 states that we have to provide technology support for students who may experience technical difficulties on remote instruction days. We know that oftentimes if a student can't log in or they cannot access a specific online material. That can be a barrier to effective instruction. So some methods that you might consider to have in place are help desk, phone and email options, online chats, and even remote screen sharing that you can put in place for students to access technology supports on remote instruction days. So those 13 that we just went over are the 13 that are included in Senate Bill 704. Our State Board of Education also added 2 additional components, and this is component 14. And this is how you will respond to the unique needs of your English language learners, your academically gifted learners, and your McKinney-Vento learners. So how has your LIEPs been updated to be adapted to remote learning, and how will you best address those learners' needs in your plan? And lastly, item 15 is where each PSU has the opportunity to describe the limitations that exist for implementing quality remote learning based on your specific environment. Some of those limitations may be devices, broadband connectivity, professional development, your access to instructional resources and digital content, qualified licensed teachers, transportation, childcare, child nutrition. But it is very open-ended where you limitations you are facing to implement quality remote instruction. So with that, let's go ahead and take a look at what the template looks like. And I'm going to turn this over to Jill Darrow. She is one of our regional consultants. And she will
Vanessa, before we do that, just before we do that, I just want to see if we can look at some of the questions before we go into the template.
Yes, thank you, Sneha.
Absolutely. I think one has been, they have loved all of your comments, Vanessa. And so a question was, well, will we be getting those? So yes, all of those comments and more will be shared with you on Friday when we release the guidance document. So every one of these components will have questions for you to think about and further guidance and clear direction. So you will have that for sure. And all of Vanessa's comments are in those documents, in that document.
They are. And I just want to add one thing about the guidance document, Sneha. We have had broad input from experts in the field on developing the guidance documents. We have reached out to Exceptional Children's, our McKinney-Vento partners. So we have made sure that we've put guidance in place from experts that we have available to us to create this for you.
We also have some questions regarding when the slide deck and other things will be coming out. So again, on Friday, the actual contacts will receive the actual template and those links, which Pam is going to review with you in just a moment. And then everything else will also be coming out through typical listservs, as well as I believe we'll make the weekly top 10 this week. So you will have all of that information. We will not be monitoring these remote learning plans. David, you just asked that. We are not evaluating, nor are we monitoring these remote learning plans. They really are intended for your local use, and that the components are there to help you determine what is best for you locally. Bill, Pam, do you see any others that we have not directly addressed?
Sneha, there is a question about who sent the original email asking for the remote instruction plan contact.
That email was sent from Jessica Swinky. She's our communications point, and that went out to each superintendent, our charter principal, lab school principal.
Did that go out through Jessica or through Jack Hoke's email to the superintendents?
It went out through Jessica's Top 10 and Jack Hoke.
Okay. I had just been telling some of the superintendents it was out of Jack Hoke's email.
It
So
went,
just wanted to
it
make
went
sure.
2 ways is my understanding.
And yes, this is being recorded. It will be closed captioned and also sent out on Friday. And then the last one I see about if you have not chosen your resources by July 20th, at least some of them that you're planning on using need to be on that spreadsheet. And then if we can always follow back up with you if needed, but whatever you've already looked at, you would want to indicate that. I think that's it. Jill, Pam, do you see any others?
I do not, that you've not already answered.
Excellent. Okay, it's all yours, Pam.
Well, I do see one other question. I'm sorry, this is Vanessa, and this is around school calendar days and the 5 days. The question is, currently the school calendar allows for only 5 remote learning days. Is this plan addressing those 5 days or a more extended potential closure? Will districts be given additional guidance, flexibility for additional remote learning days?
So yes, we are very acutely aware that legislation is limiting 5 days. We do know that originally when that was drafted, it was before the summer had begun and things are becoming more real. The department and the board are working very diligently to try to get that changed. And so this plan is minimally for those 5 days, but we definitely believe that this should be for continued remote learning. In the next week to 2 weeks, you will be getting very clear directions from the department as well as DHHS around operational planning. And so all of this will come together quite nicely. But there is always the chance as we move into the next academic year with disruptions for COVID-19 that we will need to be prepared to do what we have just now done, which is extended remote learning.
And Sneha, there's one other question. When will we know our Read to Achieve program options, and are there any other implications of Read to Achieve which need to be considered in the remote instruction plan?
So I am not the authority on Read to Achieve. We will definitely get that information for you. I know Tara Galloway has been working to better understand the Read to Achieve. We do know that the Jumpstart plans, which are due at the end of this month, that guidance is going to the board on Thursday. So you will be receiving that on Friday as well. I believe Friday you'll be receiving lots of information from us this week as well as next.
I don't see any other questions in the chat right now. And so if there are no other questions, I'm going to turn it over to Jill, and she's going to give you a look at the remote instruction plan template.
So good afternoon. Pam, if you could advance to the next slide. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Jill Darrow. Just want to share with you the remote instruction plan template. In the guidance and email that the point of contact will get later this week, there will be 2 ways that you can access the template. If you're a Google district, then you can make a forced copy of this template and work collaboratively on this document. It's very open-ended, as Vanessa and Sneha said, you know, it has all 15 points, 13 from Senate Bill 704, as well as the 2 added. Plus, there's going to be a few optional items. And this is just a framework, so it's very flexible if you want to add additional information. In the beginning of this document, we just need some basic information from each public school unit. And then each item is just open-ended. If you are not a Google district, then you can, we will also send you an attachment as a Word document, and then you can put it in Office 365 and collaborate that way. As you can see, here's an example of item number 1 and 2. We've taken the language directly from Senate Bill 704 and just turned it into a question and given you an area for just to enter your plan. All right, Pam, if you'll go to the next slide, just shows you a few other questions, 3 through 6. And then here's our optional section for items number 16 and 17. Today, we have not provided you the actual link to this document, and that's purposeful. We know that right now we have 478 people just on this call. And if we give you a link to a forced Google document, then everyone would make their own copy and not have one centralized copy for their public school unit. So this is very purposeful that you've not been given this link today. Your public school unit's point of contact that's been designated will get the bit.ly to make the single copy either in Google or in Office 365, and then share that out with the team that's going to collaborate on this plan together. That way you don't have loose plans just floating out there, not knowing who is planning and collaborating. All right, next slide, Pam. So we've got some simple steps for the plan and submission instructions. Vanessa, did you want to go over these?
I just want to say, don't feel like you have to take notes. All of this will be sent to you on Friday, how you will name your plan. And this will make sense to you when we go over the reporting, why we have to name the plans like we have. But we will spell out very detailed steps once you complete your plan with your group, how you will name it, how you will upload it. And that will make sense to you when we move on to reporting. So we're going to jump on then. So we don't need to go over all those steps now. I just want you to see there is a plan, there is a process. Your focus right now is to get your copy, get your team together, and be able to put your information in your plan. I do want to let you know about additional support that's coming. And slide 28, Pam, will show you that we will have technical assistant Tuesdays. And I hope you can see that we want to make sure that we're giving you further guidance around each of the 15 components. We've broken it down to the components of this plan that relates to technology, instructional technology, and communication. And next Tuesday, we will have a follow-up webinar that will take a deeper dive into some of the things you may consider as you develop those components of your plan. And then on June 23rd, we'll have another webinar around your instructional planning components, your diverse learners components, and your limitations. And then in between, because we want to have support on each Tuesday, we will just have open office hours from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock, where we will pull in some experts from the field to be there in case you have specific questions as you complete your plan. And then again, plans need to be submitted on July 20th. So wrapping up, I want to go through what we are required to report to the General Assembly so you can understand exactly why the submission is that way and the template is developed as it is. we will report to the General Assembly on September 15th. Again, I want to highlight this. We are not evaluating the quality of your plans. This is not intended to be something that we're using to look at how good one district did compared to another district. This is for you to put a plan in place that helps you on remote instruction and to think through all the components you need to include. What we are required to report on to the General Assembly is a list of all of the online and offline resources used by PSU. And that's why we have asked to have the spreadsheet that you will also submit. And we will also report which PSUs chose to only use offline resources and the number and the percentage of PSUs that did and did not provide a plan addressing each item. And we're also required to submit a copy of each remote instruction plan. So once you pull all those into us, another part of our report is looking at the trends and the challenges that everyone faced across the state. So we may be reaching out to you again prior to September 15th to capture the challenges and the trends. We know this is your planning. We know as you implement remote instruction, you may encounter new and different trends and challenges. We all know on March 13th, we all quickly moved into an emergency remote instruction plan. And hopefully this plan will look very different than what we've had to do under such a tight timeline. So are there any other questions at this point?
Yes, I'm seeing a question about how the plans are going to be used once they're submitted. Just everyone refer back to what Vanessa just discussed here about how they're due and what we were going to be reporting to the General Assembly.
And we will not report on changes. We understand that this will be your plan that you submit on the 20th. But as I said earlier, we will reach back out to you to ask you about your challenges and any trends. And at that time, you would have the opportunity to address any subsequent changes you may have to put in place.
Vanessa, for the technical webinars that are going to be held on Tuesdays, can they invite their team members to listen in to the webinars?
Absolutely. As many as you would like to invite, you can.
All right. There is another question about, can plans include links to documents that have been created?
Well, one of the things we have to do is provide a copy of each plan. So there are sometimes challenges when you include a link to that document. I think in all completeness, you would want to make sure that that link stays live. And so if someone at the General Assembly wanted to click that link, they could. And I think those are some of the challenges that we want to think through, but to make sure your plan is complete. From our perspective, we really would like you to include your plan in completeness as possible on the template without including many links to other documents, but understanding that many times you might have the need to do that. So we're going to say, yes, you can include that link, but we also want you to make sure that that link stays active and live.
And viewable outside of your domain.
And that's, so that would mean appropriate permissions as well.
Also, if a plan changes, do they need to report the changes to anyone?
Right now, we have not received guidance that if that plan has a change that it needs to be reported differently. As I said earlier, we will do a second reach out as we report on challenges and trends. And if there is a significant change, give you the opportunity to let us know that there has been one at that time.
Very good. Pam, can you go back to the slide with the technical webinars, dates and times? And if the audience wants to take a picture of this, but this information will be sent out Friday also. All right, I am not seeing other questions. We'll wait for a moment. Okay, question has just come in. Will we be able to insert tables in the sections? And Dr. Wilson, yes, you'll be able to insert tables. It's just that is a single table, single cell that you can embed additional tables and cells.
And Jill, I see a question about PDF attachments. And I'll answer that. Yes, you can attach a PDF.
Yes, and that will be helpful. We have a question about, can we go back to point number 12?
So Amanda, this is the wording and the legislation, and I will leave it for your interpretation. In the event that it says online and offline options for students, is that the one you're talking about? So offline options are some things that we are looking at. How can a student contact you offline? One of the things that we feel like the intent of that is by phone, because we know if we have guidance for social distancing, that would need to be taken into account on how you would approach that item.
All right. There's another question. There was a reference to the standard course of study. I assume this plan will also include those students and materials, et cetera, that access the extensions of the standard course of study. Is this accurate?
I'm not sure if I am understanding the question.
Elizabeth, if you want to just restate your question in the question box, and we'll move on to the next one. Vanessa, can you talk a little more about Jumpstart?
I am not the expert on Jumpstart, so I would collect your question. Tara Galloway and Mary Hemphill are leading that, and actually Jumpstart will go to the state board this week for final approval. I can say that once the state board approves many items with Jumpstart, information will come out about that. That is not part of the remote instruction plan. That's a whole separate program. And I do know that future guidance is coming out about Jumpstart after the state board meets Thursday. But I would encourage you to reach out to Dr. Tara Galloway or Dr. Mary Hemphill with any questions that you might have specific to Jumpstart.
With Amanda's question about online and offline resources, she's referring to item number 2 with the spreadsheet. What types of offline resources might we be referencing?
If your system is doing print resources, workbook resources, lab manipulative materials, those would be the types that you would make sure that you are capturing, that you would put on your spreadsheet for offline.
All right. Elizabeth restated her question. She said, in the discussion of career instruction, the slide mentioned how we address the standard course of study. Some students with disabilities across extensions of the standard course of study. Is it accurate that all the courses of study are to be reflected in this plan?
That is accurate.
Okay. Any other questions? I am seeing a question from Juliana Thompson about asking for us to resend the link to our superintendents. So the link came from Jessica Swinski. Juliana, if you want to drop your email in the Q&A, and I will forward it to you directly. I just got it from Jessica.
And we'll make sure it goes back out this week from Jack Hope through his distribution list as well. So we'll just make sure we do another follow-up on that. And it's also will be in this week's top 10. And if those of you who may not be familiar, each Friday there's a top 10 list of items that gets sent out to each superintendent with all pertinent things from that week. Jill, will you navigate back to the second page of the template?
Pam, that's gonna be slide 23, or 22. Vanessa, did you have a talking point around this?
That is in the chat box. Would someone
Okay.
show that second page of the template again? Pamela, did you have a specific question? No, she just said thank you.
You're welcome.
So again, we are here to support you. I want to reiterate, our job is not to be evaluative of your plans. We are following Senate Bill 704 and the requirements of that. Again, for us, the purpose is for us to have a plan for quality remote instruction. As we know now, we will have 5 remote instruction days, but as we receive guidance from DHHS, we know that we have a great potential for an extended period of remote instruction days. And so this is to help us be prepared and be thinking about all the pieces that we need for reasonably effective remote instruction going forward. And so I hope we met the purpose of today, which is to make sure you are aware of the 15 components of the plan, the template that will be sent to you on Friday, for your work groups to go ahead and collaborate and start working on your plan, and for future supports that are coming out. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email either myself or Sneha Shah Coltrane, and we will answer you as quickly as possible. We're also going to put together an FAQ from this session today, and we also conducted a charter leaders session at 2:30 today, and we'll compile all those questions and get an FAQ out to you by Friday as well, along with the slide deck and the template and a guidance document to support you. I thank you so much for your attendance. I know you've got a lot of hard work ahead of you, and it has been a hard road. So I hope this has been helpful, and please know that we're here to continue support of you as you develop